guys, welcome to episode 10 of Forged in the Fire. This show was specifically designed to hear from people who have achieved a level of success, because life and success are not linear journeys. So our guests will be sharing their journey of how they've walked through fire to be forged into their best selves, the same way the blacksmith forges a lump of steel into a sword. So I've got my friend Brian on here. Pretty excited to dive into his story. You know, we've connected on Instagram many times, but I think this is our first like face-to-face kind of conversation. So I'm excited to learn more about you today, man. And just so the audience knows, Brian is an all-star lender here in the Phoenix Valley. I think you've been in the industry for what, 15 plus years?
Yeah, a little over 15 years. Yeah. I appreciate you having me, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too. So I kind of know a little bit about this from like us talking on Instagram and everything, but where did you grow up and what was it like?
So I grew up in small town Ohio, Northeast Ohio, definitely Rust Belt, blue collar. My dad worked in the mills and he retired there after like 34 years. And so when I was going to school, I would work in the steel mill. That's how I helped pay for college, pay for all the expenses. Whenever I was off in summer break or winter break, that's where I was working. So I appreciate where I grew up. I knew I didn't want to stay there. There wasn't a whole lot of opportunity, to stay in small town Ohio, but I'm definitely thankful for growing up there. It taught me hard work, taught me how to, be respectful of myself and others. And I say the people there are great. For opportunity wise in the workforce, I always kind of knew I wanted to get away, and I was a little sick of the weather. So always kind of had that, thought in my mind where, hey, once I'm wrapped up with school, I'm getting out of here. And that's exactly what I did. So graduated from college in 2007 and went straight to Arizona. I graduated and I was out here like a week later, just,
Wow.
Just winging it. And this was, I decided to get in the mortgage business in 2007, right at the beginning of the downturn. So my first full year in the mortgage business was 2008.
Oh my goodness.
Great timing. So you want to talk about getting forged? So that it was a learning experience to say the least. So
I want to come back to that, but
sure.
What was it like? What was it like working in the mills? I have to imagine that was extremely hard work.
It's really hard work. And I can appreciate it now, because the cool thing about that is the work's hard. You finish your shift. You can't wait to get home and rest, but you punch that clock and then all the worries of the workday are done, and then transitioning into what we do now, real estate, mortgage, all these, there's always deals, there's always problems, there's always things to, your mind never stops. So looking back on it, I'm like, man, I remember punching that clock, getting in my car, and I didn't have to think about work till the next day or the next Monday or whatever. And that was a cool feeling, but I think things worked out all right. But it's kind of cool to have the little bit of background in, in the blue collar world too, and see how, those guys work their butts off. And, I definitely have a huge appreciation for that too.
Likewise. Yeah. I remember before I got into real estate, I was managing restaurants and bars in Old Town. I couldn't really ever leave work from that because I was managing. And so it was like, I was constantly thinking about work. But when I was in high school, I started working in like construction, masonry assistant, and as like a landscaper.
Sure.
And same thing, like when you leave, like you can leave it there because you're going to come back the next day and it's going to be just a different project.
Exactly. Yep.
But yeah, I can definitely relate. You really can't punch out of what we do right now, which is great.
Nope.
But sometimes.
Yeah. And I remember, it was a dangerous job, and there's cranes going back and forth and lifts of pipe. And a couple times I was walking, my job was called a hook on. And so that's the guy that basically runs the entire mill. They take the pipe from one station off the furnace to the next station to the finishing table. Then ultimately we get it up on the trucks. The trucks come pick it up, goes off to the customer. So I was in charge of doing that. And so I'm constantly moving all day back and forth, knowing where each order has to go, where it's at in the process. And several times, a crane would either malfunction or break and then drop a lift of pipe on the ground. And you want to talk about just a thunderous sound you can't even describe. It felt like an earthquake. You have tons of steel dropping on a concrete floor. Pretty wild stuff. I've had my hand smashed, my finger smashed.
Ouch.
The guys that had severe injuries down there, lost fingers, lost hands. So I was in the thick of it. And like I said, I have a huge appreciation for those guys. And I just did that for a few summers and a few winters here and there. There's guys that put 30, 40 years in there. So it's massive respect to to those guys that are kind of still building our country and doing the hard work out there. So
No kidding. So you weren't in like a grain mill, you were in a steel mill.
steel mill. Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
We did custom tubing for like a lot of our customers were like Polaris motorcycles, Whirlpool washer and dryers. So very customized and very specific measurements of the pipe. And we would use what's called like a draw bench, and we would draw the raw steel down to a very specific wall length or wall thickness and diameter and interior diameter. And it had to be, I mean, within inches and millimeters. I mean, very, very specific per the customer. So, and if it wasn't within that little tolerance, we had to scrap the whole thing and start over. So it was pretty unique. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much engineering that goes into that type of machinery that it sounds like, I mean, they look amazing when they're finished products. So I have to imagine it just has to be on point.
Yep, exactly. Right. We had lasers to measure everything, and we'd start the order, we'd take a measurement, we would pull like 15 pieces through, we'd take another measurement because it would heat up, and we had like to maintain that tolerance. And like I said, there was such strict tolerance requirements from the customer, because if they're putting that into a motorcycle or whatever it is, I mean, it's got to be as exactly dialed in. There's just no room for error. So it was pretty cool. I mean, I've always had an appreciation kind of for numbers and being specific with things, and that kind of fit right into that too. But it was hell of a lot harder work than I do now.
Yeah, no kidding. Whoa, yeah. Dude, I just had the craziest flashback when we were sitting here working or talking. So before I started working in like the construction jobs in high school, I actually worked as a this guy that he had like a home office type like metal shop. And so we built, I'm from the Lake Minnetonka area of Minnesota. And so we have like boats everywhere. We were building boat stands. And so what you were doing down in the steel mill was like we were the next level of supply chain that came in. Right. So my job was basically cutting the tubing and then just putting them in stacks so that he could go in and weld all the pieces together. So I just had a major flashback to sitting there like with this huge machine, stepping on it and making sure to get my finger cut off and make sure that the pipe was cut to our standards and our length. And
exactly.
Wow. Yeah, that was weird. I haven't thought about that for so long.
And here we are now, many years later. I like it. It's awesome.
Yeah. So I want to reel it back to like the 2008 period. So you went through all of that, and I know what it was like for like my family. Very tough times during that period, which we can talk about if you want. But what was it like being in the mortgage industry? Like, what did you go through then?
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, like I said, fresh out of college, and had the opportunity to get into the business. A friend of a friend had moved out from Ohio, and he said, "Hey, once you finish up your degree, like, I've got a job for you out in Phoenix." So I came out here maybe a couple months before graduation, fell in love with it immediately, and like, this is awesome. I can deal with the heat. I love, I'm a huge golfer, so there's golf courses everywhere. I love the warm weather all year, and so I was like, I'm in. It wasn't even a hesitation. So I moved out. Got in the business, did my training, took a few months or whatever. They flew us out to St. Louis for sales training, came back and started kind of trying to build my pipeline. And the model I was in then, it was in retail, and they were heavy refinance. They did purchase business too, but they didn't really focus on it. They really did a lot of refinance. Say they buy leads and they would have radio ads and stuff, and it was all kind of geared towards, people calling in to, refinance their home. So going back to 05, 06, 07, a lot of those mortgages were adjustable rate mortgages. A lot of them were called like pay option adjustables, where you can, pick your payment. You can do the full amortization. You could do a 15-year, or you could do interest only. Or if you want the lowest payment, you can do a neg am payment. And so for people that are listening, that means if you're making that payment, you're not even covering the interest on your loan. So you make a payment, and the next month you get a statement, and then your mortgage balance is higher than before you made that payment. So you want to talk about the goofy stuff that was going on. Those are the kind of loans that for that 3-year stretch, maybe, that's what people were doing, and that's what the loans were looking like. And you could kind of looking back on now, or even then, I'm completely new to the industry, coming out of college, and I'm like, well, I don't know about this. This doesn't sound, everyone's, oh, it's fine. It's, and I'm like, that doesn't seem like it makes sense to me. And then, fast forward just a few months, lenders start going out of business, banks start consolidating, we're having account executives come in our office one week and next week they lost their job or their lender went under. Crazy times to be in it. And I truly did, like to your point, I mean, there's people struggling then. They maybe got into mortgages that didn't, that just assumed that their house would just keep appreciating forever. We all know that's never the case. There's always going to be cycles in real estate and like anything else in life. And a lot of when these things came due, whether they had an adjustable rate or they had to start making a principal and interest payment or whatever the case may be, a lot of these people, their income had gone down or the house had stopped appreciating and started going down in value and they were stuck.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of these calls coming in, went through the loan application, got their appraisals ordered. And it was shocking, a lot of the appraisals coming in 100,000, 150,000, 200 grand less than what they paid for just a year and a half prior. Mm-hmm. And I internalized that, like, I want to help people. And that's why I got in the business. And to be, for me to call them and be like, hey, your appraisal came in, I know you paid 400, but it came in at 285. Like, that is not an easy phone call to have. And it's like, okay, well, Brian, what can you do for me? I'm like, I can't do anything, unfortunately. It's, and I can't advise a client to go short sale or go foreclose, but it's just like, I mean, it's not good when there's no options. And that was in a nutshell, my first like year and a half in the business was just absolutely brutal, and had some closings, still had some people that had some equity, and people that were able to get into better loans or go into 15 years or lower their rate on a 30-year. But it was just a more struggle than anything else. And like I said, you want to talk about trial by fire, getting in right out of college and experiencing that. I'm like, man, I don't know if this is for me. This is tough.
About cutting your teeth, my goodness.
Yeah, for sure. So luckily I stuck it out, and the original company that I started with, I'm like, you know what, things aren't going great here. I just through coincidence met someone through a friend, and he's like, listen, he's like, refinances are dead right now. You need to focus on purchase business. Here's how you do that. Here's how you go after realtors. Here's what I do. And basically, hey, I'm happy to mentor you. Do as I say and follow these steps, and you're going to be great. And I took that plunge, and then I started, focusing on real estate agents and helping home buyers. And then I never really looked back. If you focus on purchase business, you're always going to have the referrals. You're always going to have refinances down the road of those customers, but the purchases, markets up, markets sideways, markets down, there's always people buying homes. And that was a great guy, great timing and a great guy to meet to kind of help me through that period. And then, like I said, I kind of stuck through it when things got tough, but fast forward a few years from then things really started to pick up for me. And 15 years later, here I am, and just opened up my own mortgage company last fall with a partner, and things are going great. And glad I stuck with it. So it was a humble beginnings and a tough start to the business for me.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, congrats on starting the new brokerage business. That is awesome, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it for sure.
What were some of like the early struggles that you went through with that? Because I mean, when all that stuff's going on, like the news is telling you all this crazy stuff. I mean, just like it is right now. But back then I was young, so I don't really remember all of it. But I know for our family it was bad. Like it was really bad back then. Like the news is really crazy. It's hard to get business and get people to purchase, because people weren't really buying back then, and similar to how they are right now, it's very difficult to get things done. But what was it like back then with like your negative self-talk and like that kind of stuff?
Yeah, good question. And there's definitely parallels from now, like the market right now versus then, but also a lot of huge differences. But back then, I mean, I had a roommate, like I didn't have any crazy expenses. And luckily, like when I moved out here, like it wasn't a goal of mine immediately to go buy a house. Like I wasn't financially ready for that. I wanted to kind of, like you said, cut my teeth, figure out this mortgage business, try to get some savings up. Luckily buying right away where I maybe could have qualified, or maybe could have done a stated income loan or one of those crazy products that were out there at the time. I'm like, hey, I'm conservative by nature. So I'm like, I'm just going to, give this thing my best shot and learn from it and get some savings build up. And so I got in a financial position where I could do that in like 2009, 2010. And I'm like, okay, now I'm going to go ahead and buy my first home. And I bought it. I'm like, I think I timed the market. We're at the bottom. And then it went down lower than that. I'm like, gosh, you got to be kidding me. I thought I got this thing timed, but you know, if you look at it, you're never going to time the top or the bottom perfectly. And I think I think it was April of 2010, I bought my first house. Like I said, it might have went down a few months after that, but then 2011, like 2011, 12, 13, things really shot up. And I'm like, okay, I did all right. But yeah, I didn't have a huge expenses then. I had, you know, living with roommates, didn't have, you know, a whole big burden or a family to support. So for me, even though things were really difficult, I kept a positive attitude, and I kind of, like I said, going through probably the worst period in that industry's, you know, history. And if I'm like, I can make it through this and start getting some traction here, like I'm pretty sure like when things turn around, things are going to be really good. And like you said, just kind of, I stayed positive and I had several friends that were like, this is not for me. They went and they took more safe, you know, safe jobs, W-2 jobs, some salary jobs. And I was the crazy one for staying in this business that's like going to zero, right? It's horrible, but kind of stuck with it. And, you know, like you said, stayed positive, and glad I did, because coming out the other side of it, things started to improve a ton. And then all those buddies that got out that I met in the course of the, you know, first couple of years in the business, they're all, how you doing? How's things going? I'm like, hey, things are going really well. And they're like, oh, you're just saying that, right? And I'm like, no, you know, I've closed X number of deals last month or this or that. And they're like, no way. And I'm like, yeah, you know, I've been working really hard and, you know, building my relationships and my referral partners and taking care of my clients, and things are going good. A lot of those guys, I got to get back in the business, and I had buddies from Ohio that saw, hey, Brian's doing pretty good out in Arizona. Let me just chat with him. And fast forward, you know, probably from 2007 when I moved here to maybe 2009, 2010, I got like 10 of my best buddies from Ohio to move out to Arizona, and most of them got in the mortgage business. So like, it was kind of cool. That was my homies and my boys, and that was my family away from home. So it's cool to have them all out. And most of those guys are still in the business today. So it's pretty cool story there. Yeah.
That's awesome. Did you ever have thoughts like quitting, or were you just like, no, like I'm going to stick this through and I'm going to make it work?
There were some days, of course, where I'm like, man, this is rough. I contemplated it. And before I really gave up on it, I said to myself, like, maybe this company's not the best place for me. Maybe let me just explore my other options out there and at least chat with some people in the business. Because even a down market, that's when, you know, the rich get richer. The big producers, they step up and they take market share away from those that can't cut it, right? So I was just like, let me just look around, let me talk to some people. And then when I did that, I ended up meeting one of the top loan officers in the country at that point, who was the guy that ultimately mentored me for a couple of years. And I saw what he was making when guys were, you know, struggling and getting out of the business and companies are going under, and this guy's making incredible amount of money. And I'm like, how is that possible? And so that was extremely motivating when I, you know, met him. And I'm like, you know what, if he's doing this, like, why can't I do it? I'm young, like I'm starting, you know, way ahead of when he started. Like, once I had that opportunity and had those conversations, I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to give up. I'm just going to position myself somewhere where I have a really good mentor and a really good vehicle to get loans done and to grow. And you know, I switched over and started working there, and I was in retail my entire career until I opened up my own brokerage on the wholesale side of things last September. So yeah, it was a great career in retail. And for those listening, that's just, you know, on the retail side of things, you are W-2'd for one company. Most of the time you just have access to their rates. Some of those companies are able to broker, but those are the Fairways of the world, the VIP Mortgages, People's Mortgage, Academy Mortgage, all independent banks, but serving a retail clientele and not working directly with some of the other lenders. Where now on the wholesale side, I work with, you know, UWM and PRMG and a lot of these lenders directly, get a little bit better pricing, and I control all my expenses. And that's the cool thing on the broker side, and why I decided to make that transition to that side of things.
That's super cool. Yeah, I have a couple other friends. Actually, do you know Omar? He was also at People's Mortgage, because that's where you were, right? Previously.
I was at People's, yeah, almost 7 years. What's his last name?
Mateen.
I don't know if I know him or not.
So he was there, and then he kind of did what you did and went onto the brokerage side, and he's been loving it ever since.
Nice.
You know, he was one of my old neighbors, and when I used to work down at Montauk, he was one of our regulars that came in. So,
oh, cool.
You know, he was kind of the ones that I was like, dude, I want to get into real estate. Like, I don't like working at this like job, and I like this job, but I don't want to work here forever. And he's like, let me know when you're ready. And I was like, I would always talk to him, and then fast forward, we did one of my first deals together. He was the lender on the file, and
Nice.
it was fun. It was weird to see how those things transcribed and came together over the course of time.
That is cool. Yeah, I know a lot of my buddies were just like you, doing industry stuff in Scottsdale, and graduated to mortgage or graduated to real estate, and a lot of them are doing very well too. So it's kind of I guess if you can treat people right and keep your head above water in Old Town, and that's a tough place to like you said, you're working nonstop and serving people and doing a good job. So it kind of translates well, service industry to what we do. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
So what advice would you have for somebody that maybe they're getting into the lending side right now? It's a challenging market, or maybe they just want to go out and they want to make a change in their life, kind of like what you did when you moved out here.
Yeah, I mean, I think I tell people that are interested in what we do, whether it be real estate, mortgage, just in the real estate sector, what I like about what we do is that there's no cap on what we can earn. And if you're willing to work hard and treat people the right way and do a good job, there's no cap on what you can make, and you could set yourself up and set future generations of your family up, if you do things, really well. Well, conversely, you can take the safe approach. You can go work a W-2 job. You can make a really good salary, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, and there's nothing shameful about that. The majority of people, that's what they want to do, right? But if you have the personality of, hey, you know what, I'm a little bit of a risk taker. I'm willing to, take on some risk here, and I'm willing to bet on myself versus go work for someone else that's safe. I know what my paycheck's gonna be next month. If they, someone can kind of deal with, maybe scraping by for 6 months or a year, if you have some savings built up and you're like, I'm a risk taker, I'm willing to bet on myself, I'm really willing to do this and do the work that's necessary and not give up right away. I think for those people, they're gonna crush it. And like we said earlier, I mean, the real estate mortgage, there's always going to be cycles in it. I've gone through some big cycles and some mini cycles. It's always going to happen. And it's so funny, in a bull market, or rates are at 2.5%. Everything's great. You can't answer the phone fast enough. You're working 12 16-hour days. You're like, and when you're in it, you're like, this is never going to end. But guess what? It always ends. And so even back when I started, guys in 05, 06 were like, I'm making all this money, and they had these expensive cars and crazy houses and 10 rental properties and all this stuff. And guess what? When the moment things turned, all those guys, they couldn't afford their expenses. They had hardly any savings, if any. And I grew up from a very humble background. My dad never made a lot of money, but he also never spent a lot of money, and he was a very good saver. Paid his mortgage off in like 5 or 6 years with a modest salary. And so that's just, I'm appreciative of that. And I'm, if you have the skill set to, to save and to be mentally strong and positive, right? Because things are not always going to go your way. In our business, there's so many things that we can't control, right? So there could be things that are completely external to me that I have nothing to do with, that affect me getting paid or that deal closing. And you have to accept that and own that. And guess what? There's gonna be a lot of things that come up that there's nothing you could have done differently. And that's just the way it is. And that deal's not meant to be, or this or that or the other. But I think if you have the mental strength to get past that, and like I said, bet on yourself, I think it's a great, what else can you say in life where it's like, if I go into this profession, I'm not capped on my income whatsoever. Like,
right.
Doctors are capped. College professors are capped. Pretty much every other business you're capped. Even, professional athletes can make a ton of money, but they're capped on their careers, 5 or 10 years long, maybe, right? So what else can you, make an incredible amount of money and sustain that for 20, 30 years? There's not a whole lot like it. So I just think the opportunity is amazing. And if you have a great attitude, are willing to be, a little frugal and save money along the way and invest money along the way, that'll get you through the peaks and valleys that we talked about. And I just can't imagine doing anything different. I can't imagine going back to punching that clock and getting my little paycheck and checking out. It just, that's me. And again, it's not for everyone. I think for for the majority of people, it'd be a little bit difficult to not know what you're going to make the next week or the next month or next year. But knowing that that upside is almost endless, it's just, that's the motivating thing for me. And trying to aggressively save and invest for my family. And, by the time I'm 55, maybe, 50 to 55 years old, I'll be in a position where I don't have to work. I can work if I want to. That's a cool feeling, and a definitely a big goal of mine to keep things up.
Yeah. Then you can go play more golf.
Exactly. Golf every day. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So a couple of things I wanted to touch on there, and I want to make sure that people pay attention to that is the mindset, even when things are going rough, is like keeping a positive attitude, because, I don't know your faith yet or not, but you have to have a certain amount of faith in yourself and in powers that be, God, the universe, whatever you want to say, that if you put in the work, if you have a good attitude, good things are going to start coming to you. It may not be right away, it may not be tomorrow, it might not be in 2 months, but it may be down the road. And if you stick through it, one of the things that I heard recently was success is persistency and failure combined. I just finished reading one of my sales books, and that was one of the things that the author put in there for the definition of success. That's really interesting, because it is.
True. Yeah. Who is successful that has never failed? That doesn't exist, right? You have to go through that to learn how to win, right? Yep. And like we said, like in our business, you can do everything, boom, 100% perfect every time and still not get paid.
Right.
That sucks. But again, you have to realize that going in, that, hey, there's external things that I cannot control, people's emotions or appraisals or, title work. There's all these things, right? All these external things. And like I said, you have to keep a positive attitude. I'm a big believer in karma, and I'm a Christian too. And I think if you're continuously doing the right things, treating people right, having their best interest at heart, and taking good care of people, even if it doesn't work out for you today or tomorrow, things are going to, whether a month from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now, if you're constantly doing things the right way and treating people right, things are going to work out for you. That's just the bottom line.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
Yeah.
It's like it may not close, that deal might not close, but maybe they know somebody that they are ready to buy in like 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road. And if you stick with your career long enough, I've learned that, I still have deals that I generated, or leads that I generated 3-4 years ago when I first got started doing what I'm doing, that they're starting to close. And some of those turn out to be extremely big paydays where I'm like, I'm so glad that I continued calling them. I'm so glad that I stuck this out, because holy smokes, I was not expecting that.
100%. And I've had clients where, there's always gonna be these weird situations that come up. And a good example is for a lender, it's like, oh, the client goes to a new build community, they have their in-house lender there. There's money exchange back and forth between them and this lender. And it's like, oh, well, this lender offered me this, $10,000 for this, and they're going to buy my rate down to that. And they, I'm like, go ahead and get the estimate. Let me take a look at it. I'm going to tell you if it's legit or not. And just not that long ago, I had a client that went to a new build, and he sent me the LE and the loan estimate. And he was like, here you go. Can you match this? And I'm like, dude, that's such a good deal. I was like, even if I wanted to make zero money on your loan, I still couldn't match that, because of all the, I explained the back end, and that builder's paying that lender, and that's how they're able to offer this deal and this and that. And I heard the guy cover up his phone, and he told his wife, he's like, Brian's telling me to go with their lender. And then, he was just like he was surprised that I wasn't selling them or saying, oh, well, that company's trash or this or that, you should still use me. Yeah. That's just not the way I do things. I'm just going to be like, dude, that's an amazing deal. And he was just taken back by that. And he appreciated that so much that he referred me 2 or 3 times, just like you said. Like, you treat people right and you do the right thing, they're going to trust you. They're not going to be like, oh, well, I don't want to call that Brian, dude. He's just trying to sell me a mortgage. I don't need it, or it's not a benefit to me. That's the last thing I want. My reputation is everything. And I want everyone that I talk to be like, man, Brian's the man. He coached me through this. This made sense, or this didn't make sense because of X, Y, and Z. It can be an overwhelming process for most people. And most people only buy maybe 2 or 3 properties in their entire lifetime, where, we're doing deals all the time. So it's just everyday business for you and I, but we have to remember that, most clients, this is a huge purchase, sometimes the biggest in their life. And maybe they only do it every, 7 to 10, maybe even 15 years. And so let's pump the brakes, let's slow down, make sure they understand what we're talking about, make sure they feel confident in what they're doing and they're comfortable with the terms. And, all that stuff. And when you make them feel good and comfortable and confident, that's when they're going to refer you. That's when they're going to know that, hey, I can come to Brian and I can ask him anything. He's going to shoot me straight. And that's the kind of, I'm from Ohio. I'm not Mr. Fancy Pants, Mr. Salesy guy. I'm just trying to do what I can to help people out, and be honest with them and treat them with respect. And I think most people that I chat with, they can see that and feel that right away. And it, like I said, even if it doesn't work out for whatever reason right away, putting my money in the karma bank, and sometimes it usually comes back, whether it's that customer or referring someone or just having a good reputation out there for doing the right thing. That's all that matters to me.
Love it. That's called not having commission breath for those
Exactly.
that are not.
People can pick up on that right away.
If you're trying to oversell them and you're trying to sell them something of that's not going to work for them, whether you're buying properties like I do, or you're selling mortgages like Brian does, or you're selling Kirby vacuums, or even a Cox subscription, like people can tell when you're trying to dog on a competition and trying to just win the sale so your own pocket is going to win, or so you can hit your quota. But when you do the right thing, like Brian says, it comes back to you. People actually want to do business with those types of people.
100%. Can't agree more. Yep.
I love that. What would you say is like one of the hardest things that you've had to overcome in your life?
Business wise, or just life in general?
Either. Anything that you feel comfortable talking about too. You don't have to go too deep if you don't want to, but just whatever you feel comfortable.
I'll keep it on the personal side, and I guess being a new dad, my daughter's going to be 2 come this April. And I think I can't imagine life without her. It's amazing and it's so much fun. But I guess being a great dad, a great husband, opening up a new business, it can be a little overwhelming. And I feel like some days there's not enough hours in the day, right, to get to everything that I really want to. But I'd say like recently, that's probably, I want to call it a huge challenge. It's kind of tough to balance everything, have that work-life balance, treating my customers really well, building the business and making sure, referrals are coming in. And, we're also trying to recruit loan officers and things of that nature, good support staff and operations processors, et cetera. And again, being a good dad, being there when my daughter needs me and when my wife needs me. It's I say, marriage itself is a new, not challenge, but it's a new chapter in life, right? And before, it's like, oh, I can work 16 hours a day, and I'm single, I can do what I want, and I'm just going to hustle and do all this stuff. And then the right girl comes along, and it's like, oh, okay, that changes things a little bit. And then marriage happens, and then the little one comes along, and then guess what, it changes again. So again, I'm extremely grateful and happy for that. And I'm figuring it out. We're kind of figuring it out as we go. But so that's been, it's a welcome challenge, but and I'm blessed to be in the position that I'm in. And it's a great challenge to have. And I guess it's forcing me to be more efficient with my time and learn to to prioritize certain things. And guess what, certain stuff can wait. Where years ago, I'm like, oh, I got to get to this right now, I have to do this now. It's like, you know what, my wife's is more important, my daughter's more important. I can deal with that a couple hours later. I could deal with that tomorrow. So that's been a little bit of a learning curve for me, but I'm getting there. I don't know if we ever master that 100%, but I'm making some progress there. So
I know of one guy that's gotten pretty good at it. I don't know that he's perfect at it, but I'll come back to that. But you're 100% right, because like when I was single and I was trying to build my business, even though Lacey and I, we're not married yet, but we're trending that way. And we recently got into a little tussle because Alec was working a lot, and I'm also in the process of remodeling a bathroom. I took on a little art project, and
nice.
She's like, yeah, so you've been working, and I'm like, I don't see you. Like, what the hell? And I'm like, oh shit, I have to schedule that in. And she knows like how I operate with the calendar. I'm like, hey, we have to put something on the calendar. I forget. And so Yeah, I can understand that. I don't have kids yet, so I can't imagine that yet, but we still have
Yep,
dogs, so we've also been trying to prioritize. On
sure.
top of all of that, I'm also doing 75 hard, so it's like
Oh, dang.
I'm
That's
like
badass. It's,
my time is like,
yeah, it's got to be laser focused. And like you said, you have to be, the calendar's got to be dialed, right? Otherwise you just lose. It's just chaotic. You have to have it all dialed in.
yep.
So I need to work on my calendar, and like you said, time blocking, or even if it's for a date night or for, hey, you're watching a movie tonight and this and that, like I need to get better about doing that. And it's funny because you know, we both work, we get through the day, we feed the little one, we bathe the little one, we get the little one to bed, and then
Mhm.
it's like, okay, the little one's sleeping, like I'm going to the computer and I'm gonna get some work done. It's just like that should be family time. That should be, let's hang out, let's watch TV together, let's talk, let's do that. And I feel like lately, like when I'm busy, it's like, crap, I gotta get some computer time in. And by the time I'm back to the bedroom, she's sleeping. She, you know, she's out. I was like, dang. So yeah, I feel you on that one.
Yeah, it can pose some challenges, and it definitely did. We got into a little tussle, like I said, and it was not fun. But then I realized I was completely wrong. I was like, oh my God, like I've
Mhm.
been doing all this and completely neglecting that. Oh, you also, like, I'm not spending time with you like I normally do at night to watch TV and like hang out and just unwind together.
Mhm.
So
For
that's
sure.
been a little challenging for myself.
For sure. Yeah.
So how have you been handling that? Like what have you been doing tactically to kind of balance all those?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, trying to be better about putting stuff in the calendar. We have a like a shared family calendar, and then also like a calendar in our pantry where I, you know, that's my like tea time calendar. So it's like, oh, that the tea time was on there. It was disclosed. Like I'm golden today.
Sneak it on there real quick.
It's exactly. So yeah, that a little bit of that. We're still working on it. It's a thing, right? I mean, like I said, it's just these different stages of life and different chapters and different posed new challenges and things you got to figure out that you just didn't have, you weren't exposed to before, and you just didn't have to do, had to do all those things, you know, combined at the same time. So it is, you know, a little bit of a learning curve, but and again, I don't know if anyone has mastered it completely. I've seen a lot of people be really great at one or the other, and then not so many people be great at both, you know. So it is quite the you know, the problem to figure out, or the challenge to rise up to.
Yeah, I can understand that. A couple of thoughts that I have on that. So when Lacey and I first started dating, she didn't know that I was like very structured with my calendar thing. And so
Mhm.
she'd be like, well, you never showed up to you know, she's with Rev.
Mhm.
She's like, you didn't show up to our meetup this month again. I was like, I didn't know that you had one.
Did
Like
you send me a calendar invite?
exactly what I said
That's
to
what I
her.
would
She's
say.
like, no, I didn't. I don't need to send you a calendar. I go, Lacey, if it's not in my calendar, it doesn't exist in my mind.
Mhm.
I have too much going on. I can't remember that. Like I have,
Mhm.
you know, I'm trying to balance everything in life, but if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist in my mind.
Exactly. Yep.
And the other thing, was one of the hardest things that I learned when I first got into real estate, because I didn't want to be a sales guy. I was like, oh, I don't want to be a sales. That's disgusting. Salespeople,
Mhm.
sales is actually a very noble career. But I
Mhm.
was sitting down with Steve Trang. He was
Mhm.
my first broker, one of my
Mhm.
original mentors in both businesses that I have. And
Mhm.
I was like, yeah, I just, you know, I have all this stuff going on, and I can't make any calls. Like I don't have any time for that. He goes, sounds like it's not a priority to you. I was like,
Mhm.
oh, ouch, that hurt.
He'll
So
tell
ever
you the way
since
it
then,
is.
I've set it in my calendar, prospecting.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's the one that I was actually talking about, that he's gotten pretty good at like balancing the two, at least from, you know, what I see on an outside perspective.
Mhm.
But it sounds like, you know, him and his wife, they have a weekly kind of like a traction meeting. If you're familiar
Okay.
with traction,
Mhm.
they have like a weekly traction meeting between him and his wife, get on the same page of like what they're working towards and like what their things are that they have to do every week.
Mhm.
And then structuring a lot of family time in first before they do all the, you know, structuring their work into the
I love
schedule.
that. Love that. Very
Yeah.
cool.
So it's
Yeah,
been,
that way this the family's not getting, you know, second or third, you
mhm.
know, position. It's like work can easily take over all of us, right? But I think that's really smart, and I'm gonna make a mental note of that. You know, schedule
Yeah.
the family time stuff, and then the work stuff will, I'll figure out a way to get that stuff done too around
Yep.
that other time.
Another thing that I've done, I don't know if you've ever tried this, is like a Pomodoro timer method. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
So I have this little timer in my desk, And whenever I need to get like something focused done, I don't use it every day, all day long, but I'll set a 25-minute timer. I work as hard as I can at that for 25 minutes without any interruptions.
Right.
Put
Yep.
my phone completely face down or on the other side of my office,
Hmm.
and I'll work for 25 minutes structured. And then I set a 5-minute break after I'm done with that. So I can check my phone, I can check my emails if I need to, or I can go to the bathroom, get some water, whatever I need to do.
Hmm.
And using that to kind of structure my day so that I'm able to get what I need to get done
I
quickly.
like, I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Try that
Yeah.
out.
I say I've heard a lot of people that do that and they get, in 4 hours time or even 3 hours time, they get in sometimes like 8 hours worth of work. Cause like you
Mhm.
said, it's like, sometimes you're so reactionary. Oh, well, so-and-so called me, like I got to pick them up, or they're going to call somebody else, or, so-and-so texted me, or I got this email I got to get back to. And you're constantly, back and forth and back and forth. And you look at what you actually done. Yeah, you got back to everyone, but what did you accomplish, or what did you check off, for that day? And sometimes you're reactionary all day. It's like, what did I actually accomplish other than getting back to people? Like really nothing, right? I mean, it's not a good feeling to have. So yeah, that's
That and the power list has been
mhm.
big for me. That post that I had the other day on my Instagram is like, so I got the Google Tasks app now,
Mhm.
and I have like my reminders, which is all just like my rolling to-do list, my daily non-negotiables, which is a reoccurring thing every single day that I have for like kind of
Nice.
mental preparation for the day. And then also my power list, which is 3 to 5 things for my business that I need to get done every single day to move the needle forward.
I
And
like
so
that.
it's different every single day. So try that out. That might help.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks for the really good ideas. I love it.
Yeah. Um, I have to imagine I know who this is probably is, but who's been your greatest supporter, inspiration as you've been learning all of these different challenges of juggling a new family as well as starting a new business?
Yeah, my wife 100%. She's with me, and she didn't even hesitate when I said, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing my own thing." She's like, "You should do it." Just no hesitation. So having her have my back 100%, that's very cool. And she's a realtor and she has her own business too. And we think alike in a lot of ways and very differently in other ways, which is why I think we're such a good fit together. She's the fun one. She likes to travel, she likes to socialize. I'm a little bit more of an introvert. I like my routine a little bit more than she does. I like to more, it's more stay put or just stay in my familiar surroundings. So it's kind of funny. We balance each other out. I'm usually the one that's always saying no, and she's like, let's do this. And I'm like, no, I want to stay home. I want to do that. Like, so she
Yes.
gets me out of my comfort zone. And I realized that early on when we first started dating. And I'm like, I'm going to be a boring old dude if I'm, continue on what I'm doing right now. This girl is kind of brings out, the adventure in myself, and kind of forces me to try new foods, to go new places. And I'm like, I saw it right away in her, and I knew like, okay, she's gonna push me to be a better version of myself and to get out of my comfort zone a little bit. So yeah, but at the same time, she's been, definitely my biggest supporter with the new business, and just helping me out at home with our daughter. And figuring all that stuff out as a family has been, challenging, but also she's had my back. And we know, if one of us has a bad day or whatever, we always know we have each other's back 100%. So that's a good feeling.
Yeah, it seems like you guys have a really great relationship, again, from an outside perspective, but
Yeah,
you guys seem to jive and mesh very well together.
we do.
That's awesome.
Yep. We can be very different, which it's, it's good. It's a good compliment. Like,
Mhm.
I guess I've seen some couples that are very, very similar, and there's nothing wrong with that either. But like I said, for me, she kind of forces me to do things I normally wouldn't do, and I think that's a good thing. And I probably level her out a little bit too. If I said yes to everything she wanted to do, I don't know. I'd probably be living out of the country right now or something. I have no idea. But no, it's definitely a great marriage and a great partnership. So like I said, I hit the lottery with her, and I really believe that. So she's great.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yep.
Can you share any tips for the listeners for like how to manage stress in both the personal and the business? Because you came through one of the most challenging points of our financial history as a nation, actually a
Hmm.
globe.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, like I said, kind of going back to the point I made earlier, it's like you have to, in our business, you have to accept that there's going to be things that no matter how good of a job we do, or how many boxes we check off, or how many hours that we work in a day, there's going to be things that we just cannot control. And I think once I realized that and accepted that about the business, that really helped me manage my stress level, because it's like, again, it's not like I did a crappy job and then this deal fell through and I got no paycheck, right? And so I don't think of it in terms like that. I try to treat people right. I do things the right way. I do everything I'm supposed to do. And if I get paid as a byproduct of that, great. And if something happens and I don't get paid, guess what? It's not the end of the world. And I think for me, managing stress, there's going to be stressful deals. There's going to be 911 things that happen. There's going to be unexpected things that come up. It's just the nature of the business, accepting that. And same thing along the way. If you have a really good year, that doesn't mean spend all your money. That means invest your money, save your money. And then when times are a little tougher, or rates come up, or the values come down, or this, that, or the other, then you've got a safety net. Then you've got your investments. You've got, properties earning you money, or your investments earning you money when you might not be earning as much money in your business. So that for me, especially even as recent as last year, when rates started to go up and applications went way down, everyone went, oh my God, what's going on? I mean, my production was really, really high, and it went way down. I'm like, crap, this sucks. It was a stressful time, but I had been fairly smart with my money, and we bought a lot of real estate. That's my largest position, is in real estate, and I'm a firm believer in owning real estate. And also, in some equities and some non-traditional stuff. Just that gave me a little stress relief. It's like, hey, even if I make zero this year, like I'm okay. We're okay. It's okay. It's going to be fine. So that's helped me, manage stress. And again, you're not going to get there from, right away or from day one. But if you're saving and you're being smart with your money, being smart with your decisions and your time, that for me, that helps me manage my stress, because I know, hey, I'm going to be all right. And I think that's a good, a good mindset and a good plan to have if you want to manage stress. And it's not going to eliminate stress, but it will help you manage the stress, I think, for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And to touch on that point, so kind of what Brian was saying, even if you're not in business, but you're just going through a tough time in life, it translates to the same thing, accepting that life, like my intro of this podcast, it's not a linear journey. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. You have to learn to kind of stay even-minded as those things are going through, and maybe a little bit more so on the positive, and hope that things are going to get better, because it's not always going to be easy, as I'm sure a lot of people know. But those that don't have a lot of life experience may not know that things are not always supposed to go perfect. Life was designed to go up and down, to help us appreciate the low times, because they make the high times so much sweeter.
Exactly. Yep. And I try not to get too overly excited or too low either, because, I can have a week where, an appraisal comes in low, or so-and-so decides not to buy. And I've had weeks where I've had, $2 million worth of business drop out in just a matter of days. And it's just like, oh, that sucks. But guess what? In a week or two or a month or two, it'll come back, and whether it's, these same customers or a different customer, it'll work itself out. And there's a lot of guys that, are in our business, and if they take a hit like that, they're like, they go off the reservation, just crazy, freaking out. And it's understandable, right? I mean, it's like, man, I just lost all this potential income in such a short amount of time. Like, this really sucks. But again, I try to stay as even keel as possible. And, that's helped me again, when times are tough, I'm like, you know what, that really sucked. Let me walk it off, or let me take a few minutes where I talk to anyone about it. Let me kind of, gather my thoughts, and just, I like to walk around and kind of, that's how I deal with it. I walk and talk on the phone a lot, or even when I'm off the phone, if I didn't have a great conversation or something went sideways, I'm like, let me go for a walk and, get some fresh air. That usually helps. But again, I just try to stay as even keel as possible. And then on the flip side, if I have 3 or 4 contracts come in, I'm like, whoa, this is a great week. Like, things are crazy. We're really busy. And I don't get too excited, because I know there can be things that come up that, on those deals that all those deals might not close, or, this, that, or the other. And so I try not to get too excited either. So, trying to keep a positive attitude, but also kind of a realist attitude, where it's just like, hey, I know that things are going to work themselves out, and sometimes it's going to be great, sometimes it's going to be not so great. But if I'm doing the right activities and I'm doing them consistently, at the end of the day, it's going to be fine.
Love it. That's so true. So I've got a couple questions before we wrap up here. How do you define success?
So I define success as certainly not just financial, right? I think that time is the only thing that no matter what we do or how much money we make, we can't get more of that. And so a successful person to me is someone that's living their life to the fullest, enjoying all the little things. I don't know if you've ever read, they have a lot of people, they ask a lot of questions to late in life or when they're on their deathbed and their regrets, and they all say the same thing, like, I wish I would have, wish I would have taken more time to do this or to celebrate that. Or I thought at the time that wasn't that big of a deal, but it was a big deal, that type of thing. So really trying to have that perspective, celebrating anything, right? Even the small wins, and having a great attitude. I think that, a successful person to me, it's certainly not just about money, or even really about money in general. It's if you're successful in life, that means that you treat people with respect, you have a good reputation, and you respect yourself. So you can be successful and not have a lot of money. So for me, I think it's more of a mindset than a financial status or a number on a bank account or on a screen.
Like that. What is your why or the purpose that keeps you going?
My family. Yeah, family, seeing my daughter grow up. I want to teach her, all the life lessons that, are going to be coming up, and, get her on a path to be confident in herself, and to be a problem solver, to not get too frustrated, and to support and, just put my wife and my family in a great position. And that's definitely my why when I wake up, and when I'm dealing with this pain in the ass client or pain in the ass realtor or whatever, bite my tongue. I'm like, hey, they're 100% my why. That's why I do what I do. So it's easy to be selfish. Like back in the days when we were single, it's like, oh, I want to make all this money, I want to prove myself, I want to do this. And it's like, I'm putting the pride aside. That's not about that anymore. For me, it's about legacy, about, raising my daughter the right way. And if we have future kids, setting them up for success. And again, not that doesn't mean, oh, when they're 18, I'm going to give them all this money, or I'm going to get them through college. No, it doesn't mean that. It means I want them to be confident in life and respect other people and be good human beings. And that's my legacy. And that's definitely my why.
That's awesome. How has your spirituality, or, well, in this case, your faith, played into the success that you've had this far?
Yeah, I mean, when things get tough, I do try to pray, and I do try to have really conscious thoughts of, just sit there and really reflect on, okay, these things have happened, and it's okay to ask for help, and whether that be God or whoever, if you're going through a tough time, that gives me comfort. And when things get tough, I mean, there's no better place to go and to lean on, than to talk to God, and just to be quiet, and to just for me anyway, I can feel his presence when I really need him. And it's also important to remember him when things are good and things are going well, and the family's healthy, and things are going, good in business and good with the family too. But yeah, I mean, that gives me great comfort. And, I've recently I lost my grandma, and it's just like, I was blessed to even have my grandma still alive, but I was so close to her, and I still think about it almost every day. And, my faith definitely comes in there, where it's like, I know she's with my grandpa, and I can feel her presence, and I know she's still with me. So it's really important. And there's always going to be those tough times in life, and I think having a strong faith, it will help you through those times. Absolutely. And help with the good times too. I mean, 100%.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the things that I've learned through ups and downs, is like, when the times are down, like I'm praying like crazy, and then I get myself too busy, and then I kind of get lax on praying and like talking
Sure.
to God and everything. And then he kind of sends a little whiplash into my life where he's like, hey, you gonna come back, or are you going to keep walking away thinking that you did all this on your own? Because all this stuff that you've done, all these things that you've bought weren't just because you're such a great human being. It's
Mhm.
because God provided those for you. So
Mhm. Yep,
having that gratitude as you're going through it, and still continuing to pray and be connected even when things are going right, is so important, not just in the hard times.
for sure. Yep.
What's your favorite book?
I like The Compound Effect, Darren Hardy. I've read that probably 7 or 8 times now. I love it. It's so true. Just consistency and just, showing up every day. If you show up every day and just do those little things, you're beating like 90, 95% of everyone else. And it's crazy to me that it's something that simple, right? But it really is. Just no one can consistently show up every day and do the work. Very, very few people, I should say, can do that. And if you can do that, you're miles ahead of most people. And so it's such a great book. I love that book.
Same. I love that book.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, I know earlier you said you couldn't see yourself doing anything else, but hypothetically, today you shut everything down with the mortgage business. What else would you do?
For money or for fun?
For work.
For work. I mean, it had to be real estate. I mean, it had to be in that same sector. I think again, to go, even if, let's say, like I said, a mortgage got shut down, like what would I do? I mean, I enjoy the deals. I enjoy structuring. I enjoy figuring out problems and helping people. And I just don't see a whole lot of other industries, that have that parallel that would kind of fit with that, same type of skill set.
Touche. Touche. Who do you look up to?
A lot of people. I look up to my wife for sure. My parents. Parents have been great examples. They've been married a long time. I think they just got to 40 years.
Wow.
40 years, not too long, a year or two ago. And again, they're simple people, but they know they treat people right. They do the right things. They show up when they need to. They set a really good example, and I mean, I would love to emulate what they have done, with my daughter. And I think they're great. And I've got a lot of really good, even my in-laws. They're fantastic people. So my wife was born in South Africa
Oh,
and
wow.
moved here when she was 8 years old. And so her father moved in the prime of his life, in the prime of his earning career, basically took all the money that he had, and to move from South Africa to here, their money is not as strong as the dollar, so it's incredibly expensive for them in terms of their money to move their family across the entire world. And he saw the writing on the wall there. He knew that if I keep my family here, might not be the best long-term decision for my kids. And
Mhm.
so he kind of put his pride aside, and even if he probably could have been comfortable there, but he was thinking of his kids and thinking above himself. And he said, I need to do this for my family. And I think in 1997 they immigrated here, and they became citizens a few years later. But I mean, I look up to that. I mean, it was a bold move. It was a huge risk that he took to give his family a better opportunity. And it's a really cool story. And he basically had, in his 40s, moved over here, and then by the time they got here, they got an apartment. They got, they didn't get hired right away because they were immigrants at the time, so it was hard to find work. And blew through their entire savings,
Wow.
to make that move. And then again, imagine being 45 years old, and starting from scratch, no savings, and then having 3 little kids to take care of and feed.
Wow.
That's a bold move. And I mean, I respect the heck out of him for doing that. And to his credit, he figured it out. He got everyone over here. He put them all through school, and he just retired, I think, last year or the year before, maybe just over a year ago.
Okay.
And now he's retired, and he's got some grandkiddos, and he plays golf like 4 times a week. He's got it set now, but it took a tremendous amount of risk and a tremendous amount of work to pull that together. So I mean, he's in a very impressive guy, and it's someone I certainly look up to.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
What is your final thought you want to share with the listeners before we wrap up?
I just would like to say that the mortgage business and the real estate business are constantly changing. It's really good to work with a professional that kind of stays on top of the news, stays on top of the market. And again, whether that's real estate, mortgage, whatever that is, I think things are changing all the time, daily even. So someone that's a true expert in that field, is gonna give you great service and provide a tremendous amount of value. And there's a lot of guys and a lot of gals that, they're in our business and, they're not a true expert or not truly bought into the business and not truly going after this as a long-term career. A lot of posers out there. I mean, let's be real. So I think it's important to align yourself with a professional that really does take it seriously and really does spend the time on the market, so they can best serve their clients. And it's true for many industries, not just mortgage and real estate, but that's something I would say.
Yep. And to that point, another thing to go off of that is, when you're getting into your career, look at it as a long play. Don't look at it as, hey, I'm going to get in, I'm going to be a flash in the pan and get out.
Mm-hmm.
Because people can tell, especially like veterans that have been in the industry for a long time, like
Mm-hmm.
we can tell if that's like the kind of person that you are. And it's really, really, really hard to have a business that's actually sustainable, and also having self-respect that you're going to be in and out really quick just to make a quick buck. Like if you're looking at this as a long-term play,
Mm-hmm.
and you become the expert in your field, even if there's 1,000 others, you're going to make it pretty far.
Oh, 100%. And you took the words right out of my mouth. I think a lot of people they're like, oh, in 2020, 2021, the real estate market's going crazy. I'm going to go get my license because I'm going to make a quick buck, right? I'm going to make that easy money. It's so great, so easy, right? Those people got humbled really quick, right? The people that got their license in 2021, they are fully up and going, and then boom, 2022 rolls around and rates come up. That was a humbling experience, right? And some of those people are still grinding. My hat goes off to them if they're still out there working and trying to get through the tougher times that we're in right now. But a lot of those people didn't last. And again, if your intention is to just chase money and that's why you're doing something, it's never, like you said, it's not going to be sustainable if you don't have true passion for it and are willing to learn the skills that it takes to do something long term. Then why even do it?
Absolutely. So if the listeners want to connect with you and learn more about you, where can they find you?
Sure. My Instagram is great. It's Brian, Brian, 3, and then Geth, Geth. That's my Instagram handle. Phone number 480-274-2214. And email is bgething@localhomeloans.com.
Love it. Yeah. If you guys need a mortgage, give Brian a call. He'll take great care of you.
Appreciate it, Alec.
Hey, thanks for coming on. I have to run to this appointment, but I really appreciate you coming on today, and I'll talk to you very soon.
For sure, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Talk to you
All right,
soon.
buddy. Take care. Bye.
Bye.